Welcome back to another Logic Pro X tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you basically how to record MIDI, how to use MIDI, what is MIDI, where do you find it in Logic Pro X, and we'll build a small little song just using MIDI. This is more of an extension to my other Logic Pro X full tutorial course for beginners, and I've got a few questions from you guys to make another video about MIDI and a bit more in depth for beginners on how to record and how to use MIDI. So if you're interested to have a more full extensive view on Logic Pro X, be sure to check out that full tutorial. I'll leave a link in the description. But right now, let's get into just this video, which is how to use MIDI, how to record MIDI, and what is MIDI. So let's get into it right now. So we're going to want to start with an empty Logic Pro X session. So we're going to go empty project here and then click choose. And right away, we are going to want to record MIDI. There is a software instrument option in blue, and there's also an external MIDI option. What we want to do is actually go to the software instrument. External MIDI is, you'll see here, you'll be able to plug in what MIDI instruments you're using. But right now, to focus on just Logic Pro X stock sounds that we'll be using. So all these sounds are available if you download the Logic Pro X sounds library. And by the way, we are using the updated version of Logic Pro X 10.5.1. So let's click Software Instrument and click Create. We have our library open here where we can close and open with this icon. And then we have our instrument 1 here, which is the Alchemy synth. The Alchemy synth is a very popular synth instrument that comes for free with Logic. You can also be using the musical typing keyboard if you don't have a MIDI keyboard here. I have my MIDI keyboard right here, and I'll be using that in this video. It's just plugged in directly into my computer via USB. If you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can use something called musical typing, which is, I'll show you right here. If you go Command K, this is what a MIDI keyboard looks like on the computer, and you can be pressing. There you go, pressing those notes and sound will come out for you. So you don't necessarily have to have a physical keyboard. It is a lot easier though. I'm gonna press Command K to get that down. And now we can go and look at all the MIDI instruments and synths that are available to us. And where we find that here is we're gonna make some space by pressing up on the region. And where it says Alchemy here and this up and down arrow, we're gonna click on this. And this is where all our software instruments, our MIDI instruments are available for us. We have the one we're using at the top, and then we have a recent category here of recent software instruments that I've used. And then this section here is where all our software and MIDI instruments are available here. This is what Logic Pro gives you as stock plugin sounds. Alchemy is at the top, and it's ordered in alphabetical. And we can go all the way down here to a drum machine designer. Because it's MIDI, we can not only be using like strings and pianos and synths, but we can actually record drums as well. So we'll touch into the drum machine designer. The process of using the software instruments and getting sounds out of the software instruments is the same. So let's start with one of my favorite samplers. And in this new Logic 10.5.1, it is called the sampler multi-sample. So if I scroll down to sample multi-sample and click on stereo, this is my favorite kind of MIDI software instruments because it has those nice preset acoustic sounds that I'm looking for. Every software instrument will pull up a window like this with different buttons and knobs to twist and do as you please. And this is how we can customize the sounds. In this video, I won't get too deep into the customization of the sounds because I'm going to focus on keeping it beginner focused by just using the presets. If we go at the top here on each available software MIDI instrument, there will be a drop down. And if we click this drop down, we're going to get preset sounds for us. So on this sampler instrument, there are factory sounds here. And you can see we have acoustic pianos, bass, drums, keyboards, guitars, orchestral, world, and textures. These are all preset sounds that will switch all these dials automatically to make an instrument sound like a piano or sound like a bass or sound like an orchestra. So for example, if we go to factory, orchestral, strings, we have all these strings available to us. There is a lot. So let's just click, let's click on general strings. And so you'll notice the knobs have changed. And if I go over to my MIDI keyboard now, I can record MIDI strings, and I can go through all these sounds, bass, acoustic bass, electric bass. I can go to drums and actually get single kicks or single snare sounds, as well as percussion. Keyboards, I like to use acoustic piano, Steinway Grand Piano 2, because I'm a piano player. In just a little bit, we'll actually record piano and layer some drums and different synth sounds, all recording MIDI with the available stock plugin sounds, and we'll make a bit of a song. Right now, let's just go through some more of the presets and show you how you can customize that a little bit, and then let's get into the drum kit designer. So this blue window can always be closed at the top here with the X, and it can be brought back open by just clicking these little mix dials here like this, and the windows will be brought back open. If we don't want to go to this drop down menu, go to factory and click into the instruments this way, we always have the option on our left hand side here under the library. There are the presets for the sampler here. So the same pianos that I was using, the same orchestral strings that I was using are all available in here. Sometimes it's just a little easier to navigate throughout the window like this. And we can be searching for sounds too. For example, piano, you're looking for a guitar sound. We have acoustic guitar sound here. And if we go to our MIDI, we'll be here an acoustic guitar sound. Alchemy is the most popular synth that Logic comes with. And so let's take a look at that. We can go back here and click on the up and down arrows, go to Alchemy Stereo, and then we'll bring another box up for us. And this is what the Alchemy synth looks like. We can close this down again and go to the side here. Here's the Alchemy synth. I can go in and click keys and then look at Lemon Field's keys, go right away and click on sounds that I might be interested in, and I can just scroll through sounds. And you would go scroll through sounds that you like. And part of being a producer and musician is actually spending a lot of time just scrolling through sounds to seeing what works. And the more time you spend looking at different sounds, likely you are to find that right sound that you'd want to build something around. So I do, and we'll show you in a quick way, an easier way how to do that. Let's get back to the presets. Presets are available in the library. Choosing the instruments are available in the inspector window here by going to the up and down and going to any available synth. The retro synth is also very nice, has kind of a warm synth sounds. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of sounds available. Now let's take a look at how we would actually build a small song with the MIDI sounds that we would go and discover ourselves. Sometimes it's nice to start with the beat. So let's open up the drum kit designer or the drum machine designer. So the drum kit designer is basically drum kit like you would see as a singer-songwriter band. It's a drum kit, and the drum machine is actually more electronic sounds like what a drum machine. So that's exactly the difference. Let's quickly look at the drum kit designer. You can see it opens up a box here, and we can scroll left or right through different drum kits that are presets available. You can see Brooklyn, and if I go right, you can see Detroit Garage Kit, and you can see as I'm going right, the change is happening on the left side too. So the East Bay kit is next, and this is what the East Bay kit looks like. And so you would find maybe the kick and snare to see what you like. So this is what the kick and snare sounds for the East Bay. Let's go next for the 4-on-floor. So, and then you just go through the kits and just see what. That's a nice punchy snare, so maybe we want to use that. And maybe we don't want a drum kit at all. Let's say we don't actually want the drum kit, we want a more electronic sound. Let's open up the drum machine designer. The drum machine designer is basically the same as the drum kit designer. It's just giving you preset sounds, and they all just sound a little more electronic. And so we can go here to the electronic drum kit, and we have available preset sounds. There are a lot. These grayed out ones here are just ones that I haven't downloaded yet because of the update of Logic 10.5.1. I haven't downloaded all these sounds available to us because I've just used more sound libraries than I do use the stock plugins. But these, I can click on this arrow and just have that sound available. Go through the presets and you can click on one that might be great for you. Drum. Let's see what this drum synth kit looks like. Let that load in. How we're going to record is we'll want to go to our track here and make sure the armed track is on. And so it's off now. When it's red, it's on. Arm our track, and one thing we'll want to look at first is the tempo. Automatically, when you open up Logic Pro X, it's going to be an auto tempo of 120. That is, a standard tempo. Maybe it's a little fast for us, so I'm going to drop that down to 110. We want to make sure our tempo is locked in so we can use the Logic grid to make sure our MIDI is in time. The beautiful thing about recording with MIDI is you can edit MIDI and you can drag notes and you can make sure MIDI is perfectly in time. We'll get into that section in a little bit. We're going to want to make sure our count in is on and our metronome is on so we can hear the click that we're kind of in time. It doesn't really matter if you're a drummer. I'm not a drummer. I'm just going to record as best I can and then we'll clean it up later in MIDI. So I can press this red circle with my mouse or just R on my keyboard and I can start recording my beat. That was way off time. Let me see the count in a bit better. All right, so that's our beat, and how we're gonna want to edit this quickly, just to make sure we're exactly in time so we can put other MIDI instruments on. We're gonna wanna double click, and that will bring the piano roll editor. To make some more space, we can get rid of the library by clicking this icon, and we'll bring up the piano roll editor and quantize our MIDI so we can lay more software instruments on it. To quickly quantize the MIDI, we can click in and press Command A, and then I'll show you here if I make some more space. I can quantize, do Command A again, and I can quantize at 1/16th note, pressing Q, and that's gonna lock my notes in. As you can see, things were shifted, and now everything's on the grid. We have kick, snare, kick, kick, snare, kick. And I'm going to want to extend this here, and you can see if I zoom in at the top, I'll have a 4-bar beat. So we can press loop at the top here and we can see what that sounds like by just pressing spacebar. So everything is in time here. We now have the option to do a lot with this MIDI if we want to humanize it a little bit, if we want to change the velocity. If we found that this first kick was a little too loud, well, we can change the velocity of this kick by just maybe bringing it down a bit. Maybe the whole velocity is just a little too heavy. It seems a bit red. I can press Command A on all those MIDI notes and bring that velocity down, to 80, 74. That's a bit more, maybe that's a bit more human. It's not going to be that human if you do every single note the same velocity. So you can go in and change the velocity of maybe the kicks on 1 and 3 to be a bit harder or softer than the kicks on 2 and 4. And the snares may be a little bit different each time as well. We also do have the option to use the humanized software feature. If we do Command A again to highlight all the MIDI notes and go to Functions, MIDI Transform, here's where you'll get the things you can transform your MIDI. So we can put everything to a fixed velocity, a random pitch, random velocity, but down here is the Humanize option. And so if I click Humanize, we'll get the option to actually humanize the MIDI notes. I'll save that for more an intermediate advanced course maybe. Let's stick to the beginner focus just to save everyone's time in the video and move on to continuing to record different MIDI instruments and then doing some quantization and maybe some dragging here or there, deleting and adding MIDI, some simple beginner things you can do with MIDI. Now that we got our beat, we can add a piano and then let's add a synth instrument, a synth lead on top of that. So to get rid of the piano roll editor, we can go to the scissor window here and click that. And then we want to add a new software instrument. We want to add our sampler track so we can get an acoustic piano. We can do that by going to track, new software instrument track, or we can also click on our drum kit track and press Command D. And that's going to make a new drum kit track for us. We can then click the library and go to our piano preset and click on the Steinway grand piano. And then right away here we have a piano track that we can play over our drum beat. We can make some space here by getting rid of the library, and we'll want to take the loop function off by pressing C. And then we can loop this drum kit if we'd like. We can also press L to loop it forever, but I'm going to loop it just for, let's see, that extensive amount of time. And then I'm going to record a piano chord progression over this drum beat. And I'm going to click arm to arm my Midi and arm the software instrument, and then the circle or R on my keyboard to get going. I don't need the metronome anymore because I have the beat. And that's your choice if you'd like to hear the metronome, but I will have the count in. Okay, so that's what my piano is going to sound like right now. And same thing, I'm going to double click the piano track and I'm going to clean up the MIDI piano notes a little bit. So let's double click that up to bring the piano roll up, and we can be on our pad, mouse pad, we can zoom in and zoom out like this on any MIDI note. We can also be doing this at the side here by scrolling left and right with this little thing, zooms it out, and then these zooms in. Okay, so I'm going to make them a bit fatter here. The MIDI notes a bit fatter so I can see them. And I'm going to press enter to get the cursor to the beginning. And you can see on the grid here, I am off. Like naturally, my human playing was a little early. So I can quantize all of these notes. I can go in by hand and quantize only little notes if I want. Like let's say on beat 2, I'm a little bit behind. So I can highlight all these notes and drag them across, and I'm on the grid exactly. It really depends on what style of music you're going for. It's really easy if I want to just do Command A and quantize everything to be exactly on the grid. Sometimes in pop music, that's exactly what you want. It really depends on the groove for your song and how human you want your song to feel like. Let's say for this video, we're wanting to be really pop, really in time, kind of not as human as a maybe organic produced song that we might make. So let's do everything locked into the grid. So I did Command A and then I pressed the Q to quantize at 1/16th note. That will get everything locked to the grid. So if we zoom in now, you'll see all these notes are exactly on the grid, even these little notes in between. We can have a listen by pressing spacebar just to hear what that sounds like. So there we go. At the end here, you can hear this little part. The MIDI, because we quantized at 1/16th, it brought some of those eighth notes a little bit too early, and it's not sounding great. Right around here. So it's these two notes. These two notes here are just a little early, so we're going to highlight them and drag them across to this bar, and it was the bar 8 as well. You can see if we make our cursor go to bar 8, you can see this last chord progression here is early, and so we can click and drag that. Now we're on bar 8, and that will sound much better. Go back to bar 6, press play. Much better. I can understand as well if you are watching this and you are a beginner, maybe you don't even know how to play piano yet, or it's hard to come up with a chord progression on making MIDI sound good, and I understand that. So if you'd like me to make a video, I actually do plan on making some videos on how to make chord progressions if you're not a piano player, or how to play the guitar if you're not a guitar player, and how to make music without being a musician, really. So please subscribe and stick around for those videos if you find you're in that position. Let's move on and add a synth lead to this track that we're making here. So let's click on the scissors window to make some space, and we'll do the same thing we did with the drum kit designer by we're disarming this track and then pressing Command D to get another Steinway grand piano track. And then we're going to, instead of having the sampler, we're going to use the alchemy synth. We're going to bring up the alchemy synth here. Here we do have an arpeggiated filter, and the subcategory being bass, and then the genre being, for example, us, we're gonna do pop genre. So we've gotten, right here, you can see we have 6 different preset sounds available to us. And then at the bottom, we have different options to customize the sound a little bit as well. So let's take a look at what this layered bass arpeggiation sound looks like. So maybe a little too intense, and now we can use our up and down keyboard by going through the sounds. And I'm literally just pressing a note on my MIDI keyboard and pressing the down arrow on my keyboard to go through the sounds to see what I like. And this is a very subjective thing. So go up and down through the sounds. One quick way to do this, and you can do this with any MIDI, is record any sound and then use that recording to find the sound. So let's do that right now if you don't understand what I mean. Let's record a MIDI sound. Let's record this analog glide lead. So this is what it sounds like. Might be hard for you to hear. Actually, that kind of sounds like the new Blinding Lights song a little bit. Let's record that, and then we'll use that MIDI track to discover some more MIDI, without having to play it. So what I mean by that is, let's close this window. We have this track here armed. Press the scissors to get some more space, and then we have our analog glide lead. Press enter to get the cursor back at position 1, and we're going to record this over our drum and piano by pressing R on our keyboard. So that's what that sounds like. We'll open up by double-clicking again the piano roll, and we're going to want to quantize at 1/16 again. And we could also because these are whole notes, we can quantize at 1/4 as well. So we can go Command A and press quantize, and that will quantize those notes for us. So we're exactly on the grid. And this is what that sounds like. If I lower the piano, I could do a quick mix by changing these volume fader knobs. Yeah, let's say we like that sound, great, we can move forward and keep adding more sounds. One thing we can do is, because we have this, we can solo this track by pressing S, and we can just play these MIDI notes by cycling through the different sounds that we have available to us with Alchemy. So we can open up our library here to cycle through the Alchemy sounds, or we can open up the Alchemy synth where it has this dialog box. We can press space because we soloed the track to hear our synth. So if I press spacebar, I'll hear the synth sound. And now I can just be pressing. I'm going to pause it for a second. Now I'm going to play this and then go through these synth sounds here to see maybe I'll like a different one. So press spacebar. So now I'm listening to The Apprentice. This is the balloon finger. That's kind of a nice. So let's say, for the simplicity's sake, we like this balloon finger sound. And now we have the option to customize it a little bit. Let's say we actually want the arpeggiator, because I like arpeggiators. We can do this punchy arpeggiator, and let's just give it this custom. We'll leave it at the custom preset. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let's go back to the beginning. So quite aggressive on its own, but it might not sound so bad once we have the other instrumentation. And we can press S to take solo off and press enter to get back to the beginning to see what everything sounds like together. Doing some quick mixing here. I mean, it doesn't sound so great, but this video is less about how good the song sounds like, more about how to actually get sounds into your Logic Pro X session. So that's how we would keep going by going through the different instrumentation we have in our library and in our synth section here. Maybe we want to actually add some retro synths. Maybe we want to add some percussion, some hi-hats. We would go to the drum machine designer or the drum kit designer. We can add some hi-hats, and we would build out a song, and we would build out ideas of songs. Basically, for me, and what I use Midi for is to build out song ideas, maybe for a chorus, a verse, or anything really parts of the song. And then I'll take my microphone and actually put a vocal preset in there and start singing some lyrics over it. But that's how I get ideas for songs. That's how to use Midi, record Midi. This is for beginners, but do let me know if you'd like more Logic Pro X videos for beginners and intermediates. I'm happy to do more. Please feel free to subscribe and stick around. And I do have some of my own music as well. Most of the songs that are on Spotify have all started with me coming up with ideas like I'm doing now in Logic Pro X. So feel free to check some of those out, and I hope to see you in the next video.